Save the Semantics, episode 363. It is January 30th, 2026. My name is Myro. This is the podcast where I ramble on for a bit about some shit. Recording this on a Friday evening. I am about 2 weeks. Well, actually, I just am 2 weeks out from my move to New York. I just tried to kind of record something as part of that vlog that I was thinking of kind of doing. I don't know how well it's going to turn out. I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to film and see what works and doesn't work. And just kind of try to put something together that resembles a coherent video or coherent sort of storyline of sorts. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, I was just kind of in the process of doing something like that. It's a little weird to record myself on camera, honestly. I'm not used to that. I'm not used to seeing myself like that. So we'll see. We'll see if I go through with it in terms of, how much presentation I want to have on myself, or if I want to do more so just a recording of, or doing a voiceover of sorts. I don't know. I'll figure it out. But yeah, it's surreal. It doesn't feel quite real yet. I just feel I'm kind of in this in-between stage where I still feel almost wholly unprepared to go, in a sense. I feel I don't have everything checked off and marked down. But it's, I think maybe it's just that preparation is almost done, but I'm still here, you know what I mean? I'm still where I'm currently at. And so I think once I make the move to go out there, I think that's when, and once I'm actually in the city and whatever, I think is when I'll be able to kind of acknowledge things, and I'll be able to kind of put things together and figure out my life and that kind of thing. So maybe that will also just be included as part of the process, as part of this vlog thing that I'm doing, I also am trying to see, I think the podcast will be a part of that as well, a big component of me chronicling kind of that transition, because that is a big part of my life. So I'm going to have to try to find some sort of balance in terms of both recording a video, because I don't want to repeat myself too often either. You know what I mean? I want this to remain its own thing, separate from the vlog. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I also think I have to give myself time and not try to rush out this little project that I have, because I think that care and quality comes with time and dedication, and also that's probably going to coincide with me being busy with my work as well, so I'm not going to be able to kind of leverage everything all at once. So I think it will be something of a work in progress, where I'm just kind of trying to piece things together little by little. And yeah, maybe I'll try to record some B-roll or whatever, for right now, and, kind of see how that goes. But yeah, I think I'm going to try to put together some semblance of a video, and try to make it my own. I know there's a lot of videos like that out there that, similar kind of if someone's going to move to New York and stuff, that's not a real thing. I mean, that's not that's not a new thing, as I've talked about. but it's still, I still want to try to do something like that, you know what I mean? And see where it takes me. So that's kind of what's been on my mind, what's been on the list, I would say. Yeah, yeah, that's been kind of the biggest thing lingering. That's been really the biggest topic in my life. I have been playing a good chunk of 100-line defense as really kind of just sort of the one thing outside of work that I've been doing. It's been really engaging. As I mentioned before, this is probably going to be something where I'm just continuing to sort of chip away at it, because I feel there is still like a good chunk of story to go. I'll play a good amount of it tonight, but I think, who knows? I mean, just based on progress and stuff like that, I do want to try to. I want to like continue to sort of unveil the mysteries, and I want to see where things go, because there's a lot of really intriguing storylines that are yet to be resolved, that I want to see through. There's a lot of mysteries that are yet to be uncovered, so it's a lot of good stuff, and I want to kind of see that through as much as I can. I don't know if I'll be able to like see every single thing. I don't know if I'll be able to see every single ending. But I do want to, again, reiterating myself a little bit, I do want to see as much of the game as I can, because I think that so far it has been rewarding. There's a lot of thread lines and through lines that you're able to kind of see as you progress the game, as you do the kind of like the multiple routes and stuff like that. So it's rewarding in that sense. It does require some patience, but I think this is one of those games where I am willing to be patient, because I think it is worthwhile to kind of unravel this story. It is not something that, it's not something that you kind of just like see it, you beat it once, or you beat like kind of some portions of it and don't see it all the way through. This is something where you have to kind of meticulously go through each of the scenarios to kind of see different results and stuff like that. Yeah, I think the 13 Sentinels thing is a very adequate comparison to this game, because I think in terms of like the storylines and how those are unlocked, you have to unlock certain storylines by completing certain routes and stuff like that. That's a similar case to 13 Sentinels. So that type of storytelling I think works. Where it's sort of like unconventional. It's definitely not linear in that sense. I think that works out for both this game and for 13 Sentinels. And I think that kind of crux, that sort of is sort of the main driver for me in terms of, what ticks for me, what makes it work for me. I think it's very satisfying to see, where just kind of like what these things are, and understanding certain things because you have already seen some other scenario play out and be like, oh yeah, that's what this is about, you know what I mean? And not being like confused by it. So I think that's really, really great. I would say like, okay, so as I have continued, I would say a few minor touch points that I'm not the biggest fan of. I think the calendar system is something that does bother me and that I'm not the biggest fan of in a similar case to like a Persona 3 Houses. I've talked about this in length, but you know what I mean, where you're kind of doing like a lot of these repetitive tasks throughout the day, throughout the week, or throughout this like calendar period. I am not a big fan of that. I think there are ways that I've been able to kind of leverage that in terms of making it more, doing different things and making it a little bit more interesting, but it is kind of the same principle. And so yeah, I was a little worried about that. There are definitely some issues with it, but I don't think it's necessarily like the end of the world in terms of, in terms of like seeing that through. I think that you can still enjoy it without having to like, I don't know, like break the bank, and, try to kind of see everything, you know what I mean? I'm not trying to do that. I'm trying to see as much as I can. In the same way that I'm usually not trying to like like 100% games or anything like that. I don't usually do that. The last game that I think I 100%ed or more or less 100%ed was Xenoblade 3 Future Redeemed, but that was a DLC, and that was a much smaller game, so I think that was a lot more doable. Most other games, I'm not willing to go through the effort of, trying to do literally everything, you know what I mean? So I think that's kind of, I think with this sort of calendar system of gameplay, I think it is a little difficult to want to, sometimes go through and do everything when the process is pretty monotonous and pretty repetitive and that kind of thing. So I don't know. I think that, some people like that, some people don't like that. I'm not the biggest fan of it. I would say that if you are kind of averse to that kind of thing, I would recommend just kind of looking into it and seeing whether it is for you or not. I mean, this game in general is not, I would say it is not for everyone. It works for someone like me who has just this like particular knack for storytelling, this type of like storytelling device where it is sort of told in a non-linear fashion, and that there is kind of this, I don't know, you have to kind of like, sort of like dig into it. It's sort of like a mile wide and a foot deep, but I would say this is more like, you could kind of like do what you want to do in this game. You could see as much as you want to see, but I think the further you go into it, the more you get out of it. I think that's kind of the feeling that I'm having with this. But I understand that if that type of gameplay isn't for everyone. The storytelling mechanics, you do see a lot of repetitive things. You do see a lot of the same things as well. That's probably my only other gripe, I think. A lot of the scenarios play out in a very similar fashion. So you do tend to see a lot of the same things over and over again. Luckily, you do have the option to skip through a lot of those cutscenes and a lot of those dialogue text boxes, so it's not that big of a deal. But I think there is kind of this sense of like repetition where I think it might get a little tiresome at times, and I have felt it be a little tiring, but it is not the end of the world. I think that the journey, the process in uncovering these things and getting to understanding what is actually happening has been very satisfying, and a lot of the different scenarios are super fun. Like some of them get pretty crazy, some of them are pretty interesting. I was very hooked on this one particular route, and I was like, dude, I gotta see through the end of this, like I gotta see what happens, you know what I mean? And yeah, that makes it really fun. I think there's just kind of that like addictive story that kind of hooks you in each of these different scenarios and routes and stuff. So that's kind of been the main draw for me, and I'm very much enjoying it. I think I still have like a good chunk of the way to go in terms of like seeing everything and seeing to the point where I'm like seeing, knowing what's actually going on. So yeah, that's kind of that is where I'm currently at with the game. There's a lot of the themes and the concepts in the game are not anything new. There's a lot of things involving, just considering like war, what is, your place in the world, your humanity, the ethics of decision making, and, what you tend to prioritize and stuff like that. Understanding the consequences of your decisions, and just similar concepts that you see in a lot of JRPGs with ideas of found family and that kind of stuff. There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of different themes and strands going on. Sometimes it's not always the most like coherent, and sometimes it's not the most it's not the strongest. It doesn't hit the strongest, but I do appreciate the attempt to come to terms with certain themes and that kind of thing, right? But I think largely it's about, just being human, being alive, being, the desire to connect, the desire to You know, just this desire to persevere as a living being, and whether the actions that you take is worth it, right? Do the ends justify the means, and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot there. There's stuff to take away there, and whether and what it is to actually be human and stuff, right? You know, is someone salvageable? Can you save someone despite whatever they've done, whatever cruel actions they may have taken, right? Can you forgive someone for what they have done in the past, and even if they don't reflect those values anymore? Like there's a lot of those kinds of things. So I don't know. I think there's stuff there, you know. I think, and I've begun to appreciate Takumi, who's kind of the main character of the game, a little bit more. I think that I mentioned that he's sort of maybe the insert protagonist, but I do think as we've continued through the game, he started to really show a lot more of his own personality, because the game puts him in such difficult situations and scenarios that, you know, the way in which he reacts to it, or rather the way in which you as the player make those decisions for him, he has these like different reactions. He's a very compassionate person, and I think that results in him making a lot of his own mistakes, which I appreciate. He's a very flawed person, which I like. You know, sometimes he's compassionate to the detriment of both himself and his like team, and I think that that's very like, I don't know, I think that's very strong and apparent. You know, he's not always like the most clear thinking. He's not always he's definitely not the smartest person, right? I think that it takes a while for him to like come to terms with certain things a lot of the times, and I think sometimes that has to do with just the exposition in itself coming from other characters, and maybe that's a little bit of, you know, poking fun at you, the player, for not figuring things out. But I think there is kind of this relatability where it takes a while for him to come to terms with things, and it's kind of, you know, he's not like dumb, but it just is something where he's not the smartest person, right? And so I think that, I don't know, you know, he has kind of this like optimism that is often at the cost of the situation and stuff, but I do think that optimism is what ultimately shines through and allows him to, you know, see through and get to get to the end of things. Sometimes he has this hyperfixation on one individual person, which he centers his entire decision making around that one person, right? And everything else is almost kind of secondary to him, which I think, I don't know, that's like a very, I think that's a very, I appreciate that they kind of do that, because it's like, clearly it's like he's not he's not perfect, right? He's not doing it necessarily for the good of his, you know, he's not doing it for everyone all the time. Sometimes he's doing it because he's selfish, and he's doing it because he likes he likes one of the girls, right? And he's doing it just kind of solely for them, and that leads to a lot of that has led to some issues, right, where other people are hurt by his action. So I like all of that. I think that has helped kind of round out his character a lot more, instead of it being him as just a reflection of, instead of him just being kind of the player character. I think it's molding him into his own person, and I think I appreciate that, right? The different decisions that you make also, you know, you could kind of view him in a different light at the end of different scenarios, but I think overall, going through all of these different going through like different routes over and over again, I think you are able to kind of build out a very specific characterization of Takumi himself, and I think that's very I appreciate that, and he's not just like some one note, you know, purely just like the shonen character. He has those characteristics for sure, but I do think that It's yeah, I think he does he does well. I think he has developed well over the course of playing through this game. So I appreciate that. I think a sort of character comparison that you can make is Subaru from ReZero. Maybe less, I don't know, I think less cocky. I think like Subaru is a very arrogant character, you know what I mean? And he's very bold. I think it takes a little bit for Takumi to kind of, he has to be pushed a little bit to reach a point where he's making some of those decisions. So, but I think that is probably maybe a closer character that you can kind of, that you can sort of make that comparison to. Anyways, really, really enjoying it so far. It's just something it's like a good book. You just kind of want to see through the end. You want to keep turning the pages. You want to keep, you want to read the next chapter. That's kind of how I feel about this game. All right, basketball. Let's keep it short, or rather, I don't really have a ton to add on the basketball front. So Giannis has indirectly requested a trade. It doesn't feel like anything new. This feels pretty, I don't know. It's like, oh, here we go again. And it's about that time where he hasn't explicitly stated that he wants to be traded from the Bucks, but he's basically said that. I don't know if it's going to happen during prior to the trade deadline or if it's going to happen in the off season. A lot of people are saying that for the Bucks, it would actually be beneficial for them to wait until the off season, because there will be better trade packages available. Right now, it feels like the Warriors might actually be one of the front runners in the sweepstakes, which is really funny considering how much doubt I had cast on that actually happening. You know what I mean? Because Giannis to the Warriors had been in the rumors for years, even prior to him winning the championship in 2021, right? I think there's been so many discussions that I had become just almost tired of it. I was like, I don't really, like, it's not going to happen. It is what it is. Let's move on. But with some recent developments, especially with Jimmy Butler's injury, this feels almost like the next kind of Hail Mary move, the next kind of desperation move. There's really no other team out there that is as desperate as the Warriors right now in terms of needing one more piece to put alongside Giannis. Last year it was Jimmy. We've seen kind of where that has ended up. Next is like Giannis is on the list there. So my understanding is that the Warriors do have all of their first picks, or a lot of their first round picks, which I think is incredibly enticing for the Bucks, considering when those picks would essentially be, when they would be when they would come about. So it would be like around the 2030s when Steph has, probably retired at that point. So the post-Steph era, the Warriors are not going to be good. If the Bucks have their picks, they'll be able to kind of recoup their assets, get some high draft picks potentially, and then kind of rebuild from that point on. I think that is kind of the vision that the Bucks, and I think a lot of people are sort of illustrating with this trade. Out of every other team out there that has shown, or sort of, I guess, rumored to be interest in Giannis, the Warriors are the highest up there, I would say, along with the Knicks, the Heat, the Timberwolves, I've heard, and the Raptors, I think, are kind of like the main ones. The Warriors one makes the most sense in terms of what assets they're able to give. The second might be the Heat, but honestly, like, you're getting some players, Tyler Hero, Jaime Jaquez, Khalil Ware, and some kind of crappy draft picks. I don't know if that's super enticing. For the Bucks, at least you would get like a younger player and prospect in Jonathan Kuminga, a lot of draft picks, a ton of draft picks. I think Jimmy Butler would be included to balance out the salaries, maybe some other young prospects. And I think that would be a lot more enticing for the Bucks because of both the position that the Warriors will be in the future, and also some prospects. I think primarily Kuminga. I don't know if I don't know. Who knows? It might work out for him, right? If it turns out to be that way. So that's kind of the situation right now. I think, we'll see how that goes. The Warriors are playing tonight. We'll see if I catch the game. It will be kind of a big game, actually. They'll be playing the Pistons, who played yesterday. They're on a back-to-back, so they might be able to take advantage of that, maybe get that one. So maybe I'll tune into that. We'll see. I'll see how I'm feeling. But, that is the situation from now. We are about a week away from the trade deadline. So there's really been no trades since the Trae Young trade. So I don't know if that's going to pick up anytime soon. It seems like it's pretty dry right now. It doesn't seem there's a lot of activity going on outside of rumors and some discussions. No actual trades have really happened quite yet. So, that's kind of, for anyone who's kind of a draft or who's rather a trade deadline sicko, it's probably been pretty disappointing. But who knows? We saw some crazy last minute. I mean, last year was crazy with Luka and everything, right? That was absolutely insane. So I don't think anything is really going to top that anytime soon. Obviously, the Giannis trade will be huge, but it has been rumored for so long that it's not really going to be a huge surprise if he does get traded. I guess I would be pretty surprised, though, even if he does end up on the Warriors. It's kind of wild how things have turned out. So we'll see how that goes. But I mean, in terms of would I like to see Giannis on the Warriors? Yeah, of course. I mean, it would be awesome. I don't know how good we would be. But listen, long rumored situation, Giannis to the Warriors. They say he has been out with an injury for a little while. That's going to be a bit of a problem. Absolutely. But let's hold it together for the post trade deadline, post All-Star break, and then kind of work your way back into it. At least get top 8 positioning. It's pretty tough right now. At least like top 6, it feels like, are pretty solid. So I don't know. I guess we will kind of wait to see what that looks like. Anyways, it would be exciting to see that. Who knows? The trade might even happen this weekend. Who knows? I don't know. I don't know if trades happen really on the weekends. But anyways, that's going to do it for this episode. Thanks for listening, as always. This has been Save the Semantics, signing off.